Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, a tough loss for the Dodgers. We're going to talk about Craig Kimbrel and all that comes with it. Big topic of conversation among Dodgers fans right now. We'll get into Kimbrel. We'll get into Chris Taylor's big catch, a couple other things. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. We are Locked On Dodgers, and you can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Make it easy on yourself and subscribe in all those places, and you can hear the Smart Fans perspective on your boys in blue every Monday through Friday. Make it easy on yourself. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snider. We're usually both here. Sometimes one of us is here and the other one isn't, and sometimes we are here in different capacities. But today we're both here, and we are both lifelong Dodger fans that have been with the Dodgers since day one and been able to turn it into a career of some sort for both of us and turn it into a podcast that we do Monday through Friday. So good on us. We're not insiders, but we do have experience in the locker room and the press box. So that, we're a little bit maybe a step above and a step below insiders. That is all I got for the intro today. Jeff, try to switch it up and then you get lost, and that's what happens. But the Dodgers also lost, just like I got lost during this intro right now. Went to extra innings, had a crazy game-changing catch by Chris Taylor at the time, and then it all didn't end up working out. And the final pitch came from the arm of Craig Kimbrel, who is someone that's been basically subbed in for Kenley Jansen as being one of the most polarizing players on the team. And now we're going to talk about Craig Kimbrel and the polarizing figure that he is.
Yeah, the one thing to learn from that intro, Vince, is never try anything new. And that appears to be the Dodgers' approach to closer. Also, it's hard. Dave Roberts after realistically, Kimbrel, it was just kind of a classic Kimbrel game where, it wasn't terrible. It's not like he came up and gave up a bomb, gives up a bunt single to Hunter Renfroe, who has literally never bunted for a single in his life. He's not the fast Hunter Renfroe. He's the 800-pound Hunter Renfroe. He bunted for a single. The walk kind of killed him. With one out, he walked Luis Urias to put Renfroe on the second into scoring position as the winning run. And then a two-strike bloop single by Victor Caratini, who can't hit. And, he blooped one in. And, Kimbrel said after the game, if I'm getting beat by weak contact, the solution is strike more guys out, get more swing and miss. And he acknowledged that's what he needs to do. And that's the case. He got into a tough count. He had gone full count on both Colton Wong and Luis Urias. He struck out Wong. He walked Urias, and he got to a 2-2 count on Caratini. And so I think there's a little bit of that pressure coming from command issues. Getting himself into better pitchers counts will help with the swing and miss and making those pitches. But yeah, ultimately, everybody acknowledges the results aren't there. And one thing that I thought was interesting, and I know it's going to make people angry, Dave Roberts said, somebody asked, are you considering changing closers? And Roberts said, no, I thought Kimbrel threw well tonight. The results aren't there, but I thought he threw well. And a reporter asked, is that position getting harder to justify with each time that he fails? And Roberts said, yeah, that's some of the noise that I have to keep from, that I have to drown out to. Basically, he said, who the closer is can't be just a results-based analysis. Basically, he said he thinks Kimbrel's pitching well and that things are going to turn around. And Kimbrel, for his part, acknowledged that things absolutely have to turn around. He was adamant that they will. One thing that struck me, Kimbrel seemed really affected by this. He seemed extremely frustrated. And I think it's important for us as fans to remember that as much as we want Craig Kimbrel to be successful, Craig Kimbrel wants it even more than we do, And so uh, he's adamant that he's going to turn it around. They're running out of time, you know?
Yeah, and it's one of those where I saw someone, I think someone tweeted us like, "Oh, I'm ready to hear the positive thing on this thing," and with Craig Kimbrel, the main positive thing is the stuff's still there. I think the wording Roberts used was the stuff was fine, and then Craig Kimbrel said, basically you got to miss more bats. The one part for me is just he says it's time for me to turn around, and I'm going to just come in every day, taking the ball, going out there, and eventually it's going to turn. Not necessarily. That's not how it works. Obviously he's being, it's not on the nose. That's not exactly what he's going to do. He's obviously going to try to put in some work and work on some things, whether it's mechanically or whatever the case is. But I think it's one of those where, no, Craig, it's not just, things aren't just going to turn around because you think they're going to turn around. There has to be something moving toward it. And at this point in the season, we're deep enough to where, walks are still hurting you at certain times, missing bats and stuff like that, bloopers and everything else. Has he been beaten by a lot of soft contact? Yes. But at the end of the day, we've exactly why we said Bruce Dargrado might not be a good candidate to be a closer because he doesn't miss enough bats. That's exactly what it is right now with Craig Kimbrel. He's not missing enough bats, and he's not necessarily. It's one of those similar to Jensen last year, where if he's not the closer, he doesn't have a spot in this bullpen. He's not, pitching well enough to even have a spot in this bullpen. He might be battling with like a Phil Bickford for, ninth, 10th reliever once everyone's healthy, something like that. So it's one of those where it's coming down to it. We talked about it before. I tweeted out. It's one of those where you kind of need Kimbrel to do this every time out, or you need him to be downright dominant. You can't have one and one and one and one because then you're gonna, the Dodgers are gonna realistically going to go into October with a Craig Kimbrel thinking that everything is okay, or that the postseason and the adrenaline and everything else is going to help out. And yes, it might, but it's also not something I'm willing to hang a hat on at this point. So it's one of those where we need to see the dominance, and if not, it's if guys come back healthy, I don't know if Craig Kimbrel lasts the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It is frustrating because you look at his numbers. You talk about the walks. His walk rate is right in line with his career. His career walk rate is 3.6 walks per nine. This year's 3.7. He's had really good years. He had a 47 save season when it was 3.8. The strikeout rate is down some. It's the lowest of his career, but it's still very good. He's at 12.1 strikeouts per nine, which is below his career average. Looking at his actual strikeout percentage, it's quite a bit below. And that's where you get, the strikeouts per nine can be a little bit deceiving because, if you give up 3 hits and 3 strikeouts, your strikeouts per nine is 27, but your strikeout percentage is only 50%. And his strikeout percentage is only 29.6, which is by far the lowest of his career. His walk percentage, right in line with it, with his career. And so for me, the two big things are he's not striking out enough guys, and on a very, very related note, his BABIP is at 382 coming into tonight. And let's see, he had 2 balls in play, and they were both hits. And so that went up again. Basically, everything is falling in. And some of that is bad luck, but when it's been this long into the season, it can't all be bad luck. You're not hitting your spots well enough to get the right kind of bad contact or whatever it is. And I've had people asking about. I still do believe what I've been saying, that his stuff is still good. There's still a chance he'll turn it around. With every game that goes by, I get less and less confidence that it's going to happen. But I think maybe next segment we're going to talk about whether they should replace him at closer and who they should replace him with. But in fact, so I'll cut off my sentence there, and I'll save what I was going to say for the next segment.
Yeah, that sounds great. And we'll talk about Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. Did you know the key to sustainable weight loss is through your liver? The liver is the body's metabolic furnace and responsible for flushing out harmful toxins and igniting your fat burning metabolism. But thanks to modern diets rich in unhealthy and processed foods and constant exposure to thousands of man-made and environmental toxins, most of us have overworked livers. That's where Liver Health Formula comes in. They contain 8 liver-boosting super nutrients like turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract that work together to wake up a sluggish liver. No more bloated belly, no more uncomfortable digestion. You can turn yourself into a toxin flushing, fat burning machine, and Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain that body weight long term. So, as a listener of Locked On Dodgers, you can try Liver Health Formula risk free today and get a free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit's a safe and natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to naughty foods. The perfect complement to Liver Health Formula. So go to getliverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. That's getliverhelp.com/MLB to try Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and claim your free bottle of Curve Fit with your order. One last time, that's getliverhelp.com/MLB. All right, Jeff, as you alluded to, if Craig Kimbrel is not the closer or if the Dodgers do end up removing him from closer, what are the options? And there's a lot of options here, and there's the easy thing that most people can point to right now with the healthy arms is Evan Phillips. But Evan Phillips currently is filling a role that's more designated the fireman type role. We saw him in San Francisco, those back-to-back nights, come in with bases loaded, nobody out, get out of it unscathed. And he's that role where he's coming in the biggest point of the game, whether it's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, whatever it is. You got Blake Treinen coming back. You got Gratterall coming back, probably more than likely. You got the guys that are already here. But if Kimbrel's out as closer, is there somebody that steps in, or is it, as you've been a fan of in the past, that you wouldn't mind is closer by committee?
Yeah, and honestly, everything you just said is why I'm in favor of Kimbrel remaining the closer right now, because I don't want Evan Phillips being tied to a save situation. As we've seen, Craig Kimbrel is 20 for 24 in save situations this year, because not all save situations are hard or high leverage. And so, all 4 times that Kimbrel has come in with the 1-run lead, he's blown it. Yeah. And so maybe I'd be in favor of having a different closer for 1-run leads. Although this one, I guess if it was a 2-run lead, Kimbrel still would have blown that save. But although things go differently, Renfroe maybe doesn't bunt if it's a 2-run lead, all that. But yeah, I don't want Evan Phillips tied to a safe situation. I don't want Caleb Ferguson or Blake Treinen or Yency Almonte tied to a safe situation, because I want them pitching in. I thought Dave Roberts did a great job tonight putting relievers in the position to succeed. And every single one of them, except for Craig Kimbrel, answered the demand. The Brewers couldn't hit anybody else who the Dodgers put in after Ryan Pepio until Kimbrel came into the game. And, that's kind of, I don't know. It's why I feel like the Dodgers have to let Kimbrel ride it out the rest of the regular season, or at least most of the rest of the regular season, see if he can get it figured out. Because in the postseason, having a guy like Kimbrel who, he's not your best reliever, but if he can be solid in save situations, he's a great guy to have in October. But if Kimbrel isn't on the postseason roster in October, I don't want them to have a closer. I want them to play the situation. If we're up by 3 runs, you know what? Maybe let David Price close it out, and say, because tomorrow might be a 1-run game where we need Evan Phillips or whatever. Play the situations, but I still am in favor. I'm less confident that Kimbrel's going to turn it around, but I'm still in favor of leaving Craig Kimbrel as the Dodgers closer, since the games don't really matter. Obviously, you're playing for home field advantage, all of that, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason you get a 17-game lead in the division in August is so that you can let your crappy closer figure things out and see what you have for October.
Yeah, and I think we're both on the same page there. I know a lot of people are calling for Kimbrel to just be either released or DFA, whatever the case is. But
wait, can I just comment on that? Everybody on Twitter who says DFA the guy, it's like, you don't know what. Like, it's just like a term. You see it with Kimbrel, it actually makes sense. You see it all the time, like, oh, a rookie is struggling. DFA him. No, you option him. You send him to the minors. Like, people, I don't know if 80% of the people who use the term DFA even know what it means. So, but yeah, it would be DFAing Kimbrel if they did want to release him. But that, I just wanted to point out that little annoyance that I have about the term DFA and people using it.
Yeah. But I mean, realistically, it's like you said, if he's for the regular season, if he's the closer, and that's, he basically determines his own fate. If you're good, you stick around for October. If you're not good, I don't think you stick around for October, because, the thing if you don't release him and you just pull him from the closer role, like I said, he goes to a cleanup role. He goes behind David Price. He goes him and Phil Bickford are fighting to pitch the sixth inning of games because of the way he's pitching. And realistically, you don't take him out of the closer role to try him as a setup guy. You don't take him out of the closer role to try him as a seventh inning guy because what's the point? There's no point. He's not pitching well. He's not better than a lot of these guys that they have right now. So it comes down to letting him sit, be that guy for now, try to figure it out. And then you have a decision to make once you get closer to October. And once you get closer to October, you'll have more guys to choose from. And it's very easy to kind of see, okay, Craig, thank you for your time. You're not going to make the October roster. We're going to keep Tyler Anderson, or we're going to keep Andrew Heaney. We're going to keep one of these starters. Or, like you mentioned yesterday, maybe Bobby Miller comes up and he ends up being, the K-Rod of the 2002 Angels type of thing. So there's different ways to handle it. And I think this is the way to handle it for now. Obviously, it's not fun. But like I said, it's one of those where you either need him to be really bad or you need him to be really good, because him being just what he's been so far this year is not going to help anything or anyone. And it's not going to make our feeling any easier going into October, because basically if he kind of stays the way he is, I think the Dodgers stick with him going into October, and it puts pressure. I don't think the guys would feel it, but realistically, it puts pressure on the offense to put up more runs. It puts pressure on everybody else ahead of time. You want to go into the ninth inning with like a 3 or 4 run lead if you can. And in October, that's not necessarily always the thing that's going to happen.
So here's my other question, Vince. I think we're in agreement that, if Craig Kimbrel is on the postseason roster, it's because he's good enough to be the closer. Right now, in mid-August, would you consider changing his role just to try to, not as a demotion, but to try to get him more regular work, really? If you told him, okay, Craig, for the rest of the season, you are going to pitch and then have a day off, and then pitch and then have 2 days off, and then start that cycle again. You're going to pitch 2 out of every 5 games. So then he'd know, I'm getting 18 more games this season, and in whatever role, and be committed to that. Say, okay, if it happens to be save situations, great. But if we're up 8-1, you are pitching sometime, it may be the 7th, whatever. But have that set schedule because I do think that maybe regular work, not a demotion, but don't be afraid to use them in other situations, and have a strict schedule might be what it takes to help him get that command, because I really do think command is the biggest issue.
Yeah, and I think if they go that route, it's like Sadar, I guess, wouldn't be a demotion per se. It would be more of a, I don't know what you would call it, but it's more like fluid, where you're basically kind of playing every game like October. You play by the matchups and you go by what it is. And the other part, we didn't get to talk to it about too much. I think I mentioned it, maybe you mentioned it. But with the postseason roster, or the postseason schedule that was released, there's less off days during some of these series, and you're playing more back to back to back days. And you are gonna need, the Dodgers in the past have been able to get by without using pitchers too often. Tony Gonsolin didn't pitch until the NLCS. I think that in 2020 they got by the wild card and then ODS part, and he hadn't pitched yet. They're not going to be able to do that this year unless they get some crazy length from starters, which realistically is not going to happen, just because the Dodgers are going to play the numbers, and once they get through 3 times through a lineup, you might not see the guy again. So yeah, I think that would work out just to get him that regular type of work. You look at, not to mention the Padres, but you look at the Padres, and Josh Hader's only pitched a couple of times since they got him. And realistically, they're going to have to start using him in situations that aren't necessarily like it. And that's kind of where Kimbrel's going to come in too, where, he's pitching situations, whether it's not a safe situation because they're up by so much, or if he comes in a tie game or whatever the case is. But I do think at this point, you tell him, hey, like you said, you have these 18 appearances. That's what you get. If you're good, you're in October. If you're not good, you're not in October. I don't think they would tell him that directly, but he would get the implication. That's what it was.
And I actually wouldn't. I think they might even put it that way. He did say after the game that he and Dave Roberts talk a lot. They seem to have a good relationship, and I think they're both committed to getting him right. And so, if whatever it takes, I'd be in favor of that. And even if that did mean, even if they said, okay, for the first 3 weeks of this, you're not going to be in any safe situations. And then we'll see. There's a lot of options, but I really do think the best October version of this team has an effective Craig Kimbrel at closer. Doesn't mean they can't win the World Series without Kimbrel at closer, but their best version does have him closing out games and has all the other really good relievers pitching matchups. So hopefully they can get to that point.
Yeah, that's what we can hope for. We're going to talk Mookie Betts. We're going to talk Chris Taylor. We're going to talk Joey Gallo. But first, we're going to talk about something else. Let's say you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. But nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone? Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. All right, Jeff, that was the first time reading that one, so that was a little jarring, but we'll get back into it. And let's lead off with Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is leadoff hitter. We'll lead off with him there. And Mookie Betts hit a home run in the game on Tuesday and has been that guy. I mean, we talked about that first month a lot, where if he would have just hit a handful of home runs that first month, he'd be on pace for almost nearly 50 home runs or somewhere near that. But the case besides that is he's on pace for the most home runs in his career. And now we're trying to figure out, there's been, the AL MVP is pretty much between Judge Otani, and as long as Judge keeps it up, it looks like it'll go to him. The NL MVP is pretty open. You got Goldschmidt, Arenado, you got the three Dodger guys, you got, Machado kind of fell off. It's kind of all jumbled there at the top. But if Mookie Betts can keep on with this power streak, he's going to have, some say in that MVP race.
Yeah, he hit his 27th homer of the night tonight, or 27th homer of the year. 27 homers in a night would be a record. 27th homer of the year, which puts him on pace for 38 on the season. He's in his last, there's 47 games left. In his last 47 games, he's hit 11 home runs. So that also puts him on pace for 38 this year. His career high is 32, and 38 home runs. It's not the end all be all home runs. I don't think Mookie Betts really realistically has a shot at MVP with how well Goldschmidt's playing. He may not even. That, in fact, I won't even say may not. I don't even think Mookie Betts is going to finish the highest in the MVP voting on the Dodgers. Freddie Freeman has a case. Trey Turner maybe even has a better case than Mookie Betts. But all in all, they have been. Mookie has been everything we could have hoped for in a leadoff hitter, especially after that slow start. He's been so good lately, and he really is just a solid, calming presence, on the team, in the lineup, everything. It just, I really like having Mookie Betts as a Dodger.
Yeah, he's starting to lead the team in gifable moments. He's out there dancing now. He has the home run celebration, which was memed for different reasons along the way in some spaces of the internet. But yeah, I mean, he's been great. He's been fun, and it blends into and it leads into the rest of the thing. I really like recently how he's been more aggressive on first pitches, and he's kind of started to punish that. So making pitchers adjust again, and figuring out different ways to beat them. That's what he does. And him, it's a different ballgame with him, Trey and Freddie at the top. Realistically, it kind of trickles down, and you think about some of the younger guys. You think about Gavin Lux, and maybe he's definitely learned at least picked up a couple things from all three of those guys. You think about other guys that have done pretty well, and you go from there. And we go from MVP talk to a former MVP for the Dodgers that got the day off. We're going to get the day off tomorrow. Dave Roberts says he needs a reset. We thought Cody Bellinger was getting a little bit better, and then he falls back into a week-long slump or so. It's one of those where, yeah, Jeff, is this the reset? Is it more about figuring out, Chris Taylor, and this will segue into that after, but figuring out, can we play without his defense in center field if we need the hitting to be there?
I think there's definitely some of that. There's also some of Joey Gallo needs at bats to figure out what he is, and they have to come at the expense of someone, and they're not going to come at Mookie's expense. And you don't want too many of them to come at Chris Taylor's expense because we're trying to get him going too. And so I think giving Bellinger a couple days off probably serves a lot of purposes. But one of those is, yeah, let's see. And it was kind of a mixed bag in this game because Chris Taylor did have the outstanding catch we're going to talk about. There was also a home run in the first inning that there's a chance that Cody Bellinger maybe robs it, and you can't, no outfielder, some of you can count on to rob a home run, but Bellinger probably gets to the wall quicker and he's taller than Taylor. So maybe he robs it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some aspect of that. Let's see how much we will miss Cody's defense if we have to bench him.
Yeah, and that's where it comes in. I mean, realistically, he is what he is at this point. You hope that he can turn it on in October like he did in the past, like he did last year, and maybe that's what comes with it. But it's also a matter of, okay, if he doesn't, or if he's not, whatever, we need somebody out there in center field. And like you said, Chris Taylor made that play out there. I was at the LAFC game, so I didn't see it live, but I get the anytime Chris Taylor does something, I start getting my mentions full of people asking for the Chris Taylor tweet. And I started seeing it after the home run, and then I started seeing it again. So I went to look, and I mean, that catch was incredible. I mean, obviously not the magnitude of the catch he made in Milwaukee in 2018. That was a game saver, but in terms of like the pure catch and skill, this one was a better catch.
Yeah, and realistically, other than the fact that the other one came in Game 7 of a playoff series, this one was a bigger game situation too for the game. The one in 2018, that's a game-tying double in the 5th inning if he doesn't catch that. This one, the game is over if he doesn't catch it. It's a walk-off double for McCutchen if he doesn't catch it. And so, other than the magnitude of the game itself, this was a bigger game situation and probably a better catch. Taylor himself said after the game that he thought this one was a little bit harder. He was, I mean, this one he had to jump. The other one was more of a sliding catch and almost like maybe overran it, the one in 2018. So he ended up having to change his route in the middle and kind of catch it over his shoulder as he was sliding towards the wall. This one, he was actually in the air making the catch. Just a great catch, but it was a lot of fun, to be in, within probably 20 or 30 feet of the same spot coming from the other direction because he was the center fielder this time instead of the left fielder, but the same field, and just seeing how many Dodger fans on social media immediately drew that connection because everybody remembers that catch. It was huge. It was a game saver at the time. And then the next inning, Yasiel Puig hit a huge home run to put that game away. But that catch at that time was a game saver. This one at this time was a game saver. And yeah, it's fun being a Dodger fan sometimes. And I mean, it's always fun being a Dodger fan, but especially in moments like that when we're all kind of drawn to the same memory together.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we talk about, just kind of the length of the season, even with the Dodgers up by so much. You can watch every day, and there's still going to be, stuff that gets you hyped, that gets you excited, that gets you, wanting to root for something. Chris Taylor's catch is one of those. The other one of those was Joey Gallo hitting the home run because, Joey Gallo's kind of become very popular on social media, especially in the baseball world, just because, there's the stats where the Dodgers are like 11-2 since the trade, and the Yankees are 2-11 or something like that since they traded away Gallo. You have that. You have the Dodgers being known as the team that helps rejuvenate guys' careers. And even though Gallo hasn't been amazing, he's hit the ball opposite field a few times. He hit opposite field home run. This home run was nice off a good pitcher, Brandon Woodruff. He didn't strike out last night, even though he only had the one hit. So it's a matter of, it's hard to come in, have hitting coaches or whoever telling you a bunch of different things, working on a bunch of different things, all in the process of being in, a pennant race of sorts, more so for number one seed rather than the actual, division. But it's a combination of all those things. And from what we've seen, at the very least, like I said, if Gallo can hit 2 home runs a week, that's a winning week for the rest of the season. He's hit 2, or he hit one Saturday, so maybe not this. So if he hits another one the rest of this week, we're on par for that. And yeah, it's a good sign to see that he can hit the ball and is not striking out as often, although he still strikes out a lot.
Yeah. And in this game, it wasn't just that he didn't strike out. He hit the ball hard all 4 times. It was really just he only one had the good launch angle. His first time up, it was a fly out, 98.8 miles an hour. Not crazy hard hit, but technically a hard hit ball. Problem with that was his 58-degree launch angle. That one is never going to drop. Then he had the home run, 101.8 miles an hour. And then his next two at bats actually hit the ball harder than the home run, just got under him a little bit, 102.7 and 102.1, but 41 and 40 degrees launch angle. So they ended up going, still they went almost as far as the home run. It's just, the home run went 363, the two fly outs went 357 and 348. And so he was really close to having, a homer and a couple doubles tonight or something, a really big game. And with his power, just getting to strike out a little bit less can be a huge difference maker, because I think he does have some of that doubles power and more home runs in him if he can just put the bat on the ball more often.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just hard numbers, and obviously this is a very small sample size, 23 at bats. One of those home runs comes off a position player, but he's OPSing over 1,000 right now, and 23 at bats for the Dodgers in 9 games. So you could be a lot worse than that. Obviously, you could be, he could strike out less and show maybe a little bit more, but at the very least, you can be a lot worse than OPSing over 1,000 in 9 games for a team. So it'll be interesting to see, now if Bellinger with this reset, or if now there's more days off for him, they get Chris Taylor out there in center more, they get Gallo out there more, and see what he's got. And like I said, at this point, everything is playing it out, figuring out the October roster. There's the regular season, the divisions all but wrapped up. It's just not official yet, but it's basically wrapped up. The number 1 seed, they'll be playing for that still, but realistically, that's not the end all be all for the Dodgers. They've won on the road, and they've won them at home, and they've lost at home, and they've won on the road. So whatever. So it's just a matter of figuring out who's going to be there in October, and Joey Gallo's starting to punch his way in there.
Yeah, pretty much everything about tonight was figuring out October. Bellinger, Gallo, Pepio, Kimbrel. It's all, let's figure out what we have for October. And that's the benefit of being 17 games up in the division on August 16th.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Check out Locked On MLB with our buddy Sully, who brings humor, passion, and a unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. The number 1 daily league-wide podcast is Locked On MLB, and you can find it on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. You can find us wherever you find podcasts, and on YouTube as well, and on social media, Twitter and Instagram, all by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get hold of us. You can also get hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car, or if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.